All right. Hey, everybody. So my name is Casey Allman. I am the AMA Establishment Supervisor. You may not have seen me before. I was at the last meeting, but I've only been with the department about almost 2 months now. So really happy to be here with all of you today. Listen to your concerns and your ideas concerning the management plan, any questions you might have on annual reporting. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm joined by Madison, our AMA Establishment Coordinator. Natalie, who is a familiar face to most, she is our AMA director. We have Brandon way over there by the door. He is our data and resource specialist. And then we're also joined today by Clint, our deputy director over there, and Ryan, who is our conservation program supervisor. So we're all here to listen to you and help you out today, and hope this can be a great and productive meeting for you. So just kind of going over the agenda we have for today. This first part, just an intro into the meeting logistics. I will be going over the management plan programs background. Madison will be going over Douglas AMA recharge and recovery. We will have somebody joining remotely to talk about funding from WIFA. And then we'll just have some closing remarks and, obviously answer any questions you might have. And then from 3 to 6 p.m., we're going to be having an annual report workshop where we can help you through any questions you may have with the annual reporting process. So we will go ahead and hop into logistics here. So if you've been to any of these meetings before, you know that this is a collaborative process. We're building out this management plan and everything within this process. So the meetings are open to anyone who would like to participate. We're always looking for your ideas and your feedback because we understand Douglas is a unique situation. We don't want to put a management plan into place here and make it the exact same way as, say, Phoenix or Prescott, because Douglas has unique issues, unique people, and we want to make sure it's customized to you to make it as useful as possible. So yeah, we're open, collaborative, and yeah, we understand the process is hard. Speaking on things that might be a little bit difficult, a little contentious, but we're always here to listen, and we just want to, get all of your opinions and really make it as good as possible for you. So I want to move on to a little bit of just general history of the Douglas Active Management Area. You may have heard a lot of this if you've come to our previous meetings. I think we probably go over it every time. But this is the first subsequent AMA that has been created since the 1980s. So it's a pretty big deal. We've been kind of designing the process throughout. And it's also the first one established by local election. And that was done on December 1st, 2022. It's located entirely within Cochise County, and it encompasses what was previously known as the Douglas INA. So the Douglas INA and then the surrounding area within the basin now encompass and create the Douglas INA. One second here, get some water. And then Cochise County, they already have a mandatory adequacy requirement, so the AMA just kind of takes that a step further. But yeah, that's kind of the general history of the Douglas Active Management Area. And going into a bit of the statutes and regulatory structure of an AMA. So statewide, everybody is required, whether or not you're an AMA or an INA, to register all wells, have adequate water supply testing, and then just community water system documentation. Within an INA, so the previously existing Douglas INA, the expansion of irrigated acres is prohibited, and measuring and reporting is required. So those annual reports, some of you have already done those within the INA, so you might have experience on those. And an AMA, it encompasses all of those previous requirements and then adds a few more as well. So we have assured water supply, rating management goals, plans, and then conservation programs to make our way toward the management goal and to make it a more perfect goal. We have grandfather rights and withdrawal permits, and it also encompasses things like lake bills, transportation, well spacing, and other just miscellaneous items as well. So here's just like a little excerpt from ARS 45-563. It says the director shall develop a management plan for each initial active management area for each of the 5 management periods and shall adopt the plans only after public hearings. The plan shall include a continuing mandatory conservation program designed to achieve reductions in withdrawals of groundwater. So that's the main goal of an active management area, right? Is to reduce the withdrawal of groundwater. So the way in which we do that is we create an overall management goal. And in order to meet that management goal, we create a management plan that contains like policies and conservation requirements. And then from there, we have conservation programs that are built in to kind of utilize that plan and get us closer to our management goal. So as we go through time, we kind of just go through the cycle to get ourselves closer to the ultimate management goal and just the general goal of reducing the withdrawals of groundwater within the AMA. So this next part is more for the subsequent AMAs, so here in Douglas. So not later than 2 years after the designation of the subsequent AMA, the director shall promulgate an initial management plan for the active management area. Promulgate meaning just kind of a legal adoption process. I did not know that word when I first started here. So the Douglas AMA, like I mentioned before, was designated on December 1st of 2022. So the tentative promulgation of the initial management plan is December 1st of this year. And then the effective date for conservation requirements would be January 1st, 2027. And that just gives everybody time to kind of do whatever they need to do to kind of come into compliance with the management plan in general. All right, so then in terms of just like the process and principles of this, in the development of this management plan, we're having all these public meetings with you, and again, just have a collaborative discussion with you to figure out exactly what you're looking for in a management plan, what does work, what does not work. Because again, Douglas is a unique situation, and all of you matter, so we want to make sure that we take into account all of your opinions and what you think might work best for this. So for the initial management plan, the general principles, again, that reducing groundwater withdrawals, that's the statutory requirements. So that's like the guiding light of this management plan. It's just reduce the groundwater withdrawals within the Douglas Basin. And it's a transition plan. So we're working to educate on the AMA requirements and processes, hence why we're here as well. Ask us any questions. We'll educate you throughout these slideshows and through our conversations with you afterwards. And this just introduces some basic conservation requirements within this management. So this is just like a tentative management plan timeline for Douglas. We're here in the March 2024 area where we're having public meetings just talking about like recharge, voluntary measures, what other topics that may come up along this process that you may find to be useful for this plan. In April, we are going to be publishing some frameworks, some policies, and some initial regulatory language for the management plan. At that point, it will be open for just like an informal comment period where you can view the published regulatory language to see if there's anything that should be removed from it, anything that should be added, anything that we've missed. Again, always open for your comments and your ideas for this plan. And then the tentative management plan timeline adoption for Douglas would be in August 2024. We'll have our first GUAC meetings, so an informal draft review of the management plan, including comments. In October 2024, we'll have a formal comment period, and in November 2024, that formal comment period will be ending. Once we've taken all comments into account, made any changes that are necessary to it, the first management plan will be adopted. And then, like I said, the actual conservation requirements for that management plan will go into effect 2 years and a month later in January of 2027. And that's just the kind of general high-level view of a active management area and how it applies to Douglas. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to bring up?
Yes, I have a question for you. Did they extend the deadline, everyone, for the House Bill 2016, was that approved or approved?
It has not been approved yet, no. It is still within the Senate, yes.
Isn't there another bill too about voting that you have to, they're proposing a bill that you have to live within the area? And you should have a well or something that you can't get people like in Douglas here for your district to vote upon if they don't have a well.
So
Have you heard anything of that?
for things that are pending in the legislature, we're tracking
So
them,
really, we don't know anything.
but we can't speculate on the pending legislation.
Great. Well, thanks for listening, folks. I'll hand it over.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Do you know then, the bill is, I think it's 1220
12, 16.
or 1216. There's a couple of them that deal with water. Do you have any idea when they will pass or when they will just go out because they're not supported? Is there, you should know, right, when the legislature is ending?
It's gonna be up to the legislature. Their typical session in theory lasts 100 days,
Okay.
but in theory is different than in practice, and many times they go longer than that.
Do you guys do any kind of alerts on these bills when they're going to be issued to the people who are going to be affected?
We do have a webpage on AWR's website with information on bills that we're tracking.
So to get that, you would have to sign up on the website? You have to sign up on the website?
No, it's a public webpage on our website.
So maybe for people who don't know how to do it, what's a good day or time or once a week to go on and you guys will have it updated?
I think it's usually updated on.
Okay, so the following Monday would be good. Okay.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you guys.
All right. We will move on to our recharge and recovery portion of the management plan. This is a brief
I have one question. This is Albert. Would you send us that slide showing the timeline? Can you email that to us who are on your email list?
available on our webpage on the Douglas AMA page.
Okay,
It
thank
should
you.
be underneath.
Can I just say that there's a lot of problems with getting onto the internet? I mean, I'm just moved back from Phoenix and I'm having trouble. So if you can possibly, if you have everyone's email, would it be too much to ask to just send that outline to them? Because it's not always easy to get on the internet, if, you know, like if you're in Tucson or Phoenix. There's a lot of issues.
We can plan to email out like a copy of today's slides.
That'd be really great, because it is an issue.
All right, sounds good. Just reintroducing myself, I'm Madison Moreno. I am the AMA Establishment Coordinator. So I'm working with all of you, helping to create our management plan for Douglas. It's very exciting, open. Please stop me at any time if you have questions or anything like that. So the Recharge and Recovery Program is exactly what it sounds like. We are putting water back into the aquifer for recharge. It is a permitting process through the department to have a permitted recovery and recharge well where you can store water, effluent or surface water, in Douglas's case, it's effluent, for credits through the department. And there is annual reporting that is required with it. So with that, you put water into the ground, into the aquifer to store it. You report that storage and recovery on your annual reporting. We take into account those numbers and create credits for to be used at a later date. So with long-term storage, you can store that water into the aquifer, and as long as you have those credits, you are able to pump that water for use at a later date. It does not have to be within the same year as the storage.
So I have a question. There's only one town that's going to have effluent over here. What would the surface water storage look like? Where we're detaining it, downing it?
Same process. It's kind of going through a recharge facility, and that water stays as its designated character. So if you take surface water, put it into the aquifer, and you pump that out, it's still classified as surface water. So it's the same kind of process, it's just the paper water trail of keeping surface water wet. Yes,
How do you quantify how much water is being recharged when we're recharging?
we ask that the annual reporting has accurate numbers of how much water was put into the aquifer through the well readings that are registered with the department.
So you're monitoring well depths as I do recharge?
As a part of the permitting process for a new recharge facility, there are kind of factors established related to the specific site and the hydrologic conditions of the site and how many days the soil stays wet and those types of things, where they're able to calculate losses and amount that is eligible to be credited as stored water.
Why did that? Sorry?
ADWR.
Thank you.
Excuse me, does the state have anything about recharging water in this area like Rocker Canyon Lake? That's a big rechargeable area that there's studies done on it. That's the major resource for this area. What are we doing, ignoring that?
Douglas does not have any permitted recharge facilities as of right
Rocker
now.
Canyon is, the lake itself, but they were going to clean it. But
So-
somebody put a stop to it.
So when we talk about recharge in this context, what we're talking about is permitted recharge facilities that are eligible to earn long-term storage credits for the purposes of the AMA. There might be recharge projects that are designed to benefit the aquifer, but that's going to be different than this type of permitted facility that is eligible to under the law.
You may cover this a little bit. If I want to do a recharge in a pasture, do I bring my design to you and you approve it? Do I have to have a certified engineer do it? Can I do it?
The permitting process, I know, is a little bit of paperwork. I'm not quite sure if it's an engineer. You can contract that out, I'm sure. But we approved that to be able to earn credits for.
I don't have general recharge group, so I'm not perfectly familiar with that process. But we do have a process for that, and I know staff very often have the application type of meetings with folks to kind of help make sure that all of the information needed is being submitted.
Yeah, $5 is involved.
Exactly. No.
If I might suggest maybe coordinating with NRCS, they have quite an engineering staff, and they usually have money to implement that project on a cost share basis. That we could put our monies together. Probably it would be more.
I think that's a great idea. I've tried recharge for years to get that through gabions, through dikes, through dating way back to my grandfather's time. But again, I guess it piggybacks on your question, how are you going to measure what we are putting back? And is there any kind of cost share? I know at one time I went to the county and I wanted to, can we cost share on something that will help? It would help with erosion, it'll help with pollution, but they didn't have the funds to do that. Will ADWR cost share with us to put in those projects?
So ADWR does not own or develop or manage any of these facilities. These are, in the other AMAs, they're typically either kind of co-owned between cities, for example, or other types of kind of interested parties that might co-own and manage those facilities. So ADWR permits them, but they're not owned or operated by us.
So ADWR will just be a regulatory agency.
Exactly, yes. Maybe we can come back to the question a little bit later, because we do have someone coming in later to present specifically on funding, and there could be some clarification there.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Is there any opportunity to get into the file and review some of the projects that have been approved? So we have an idea of what we're looking at and what we're trying to sell to the conservation district?
I
Get
don't,
that information available.
Yeah.
Licensed, permanently permitted, storage.
yeah,
Do I
I
have to file a FOIA, or can I come to your office and go through some files and get an idea of where and what's happening?
So any of those issued permits, I'd have to double check. They might be available on our image records repository online. Let me follow up.
Thank you.
Along with that, does that apply to homeowners with 10 acres or 15 acres? Recharge?
So in theory, you could on your property develop and permit a recharge facility. You would have to somehow get deliveries of some renewable supply to that facility. You could have other parties store water there, you can store water there. And long-term storage credits are able to be sold and used within anywhere within. So in theory, yes. In practice, that's not typically how we see it operating.
So when the county says I have to have a floodwater retention basin and a 15-year, 24-hour storm on my property, can I turn that into a recharge facility somehow?
Those are typically two separate things. It's a really valid question. Those are typically two separate things.
Does planning and zoning control that, or do you control that?
So in order to have surface water, and that's, you do have a slide for the different water types that are eligible by.
It's,
I know we're kind of.
no, I only have, absolutely
Okay.
surface water.
So in order to be eligible to store surface water, so any water that's on the ground that enters in a natural channel is going to be classified legally as surface water. A wash is a natural channel. So if you're retaining surface water, you have a surface water right. If you have a surface water right, you could potentially store that water. But surface water has specific restrictions on it about how it can be stored and when it has to be recovered. Most surface water has to be recovered within the same month.
Sometimes.
Yes. Okay, either within the same month or the same calendar year that it's stored. So it's a lot more restrictive than things like that.
So does the borrow ditch off Davis Road comes a huge amount of water from the natural drainage?
You might have to look into it. I'm not sure about this.
Who would look into it? You are the county.
The county might know whether it's surface, whether it's classified as surface water, but we do have a surface water group at AWR.
That's a separate permitting section, surface water.
Yeah, well, it relates to groundwater recharge, because that's what it's about. Gathering water off an intersection, drains miles, floods.
And
But the extent to which that water can be accounted for that purpose is permitted through the surface water.
so part of the difference in what we're talking about here is there are certain things that are eligible for recharge under the law, and there are certain things that might physically be recharged and might benefit the aquifer, might not be eligible for recharge under the law.
So if I contact you,
Sure. And I want to clarify that law thing. Recharge and recovery, when we're talking about it in the context of AMA, is a specific thing. We're not just talking about any recharge that happens naturally across the AMA. It's a specific intentional recharge of renewable supplies to earn credits.
so it's going to be a lot of.
So it's going to be paperwork and reporting and permitting and that's
With
Yes.
you and
with us and potentially whatever entity you are getting that water from, or perhaps yourself if it's your surface water.
Would be the county, sir.
Yeah. So you definitely have to work with whoever has information that's surface water.
And what about our Vietnam? And their part, I realize it's an international deal, but they're part of this. So how will that be handled with recharge and those facilities?
Any regulations that are under state of Arizona law apply within the state of Arizona. We don't have authority to regulate on the Great side. If they send effluent to the US side, we could recharge that effluent and have that earn. But we're not going to be able to create recharge facilities or regulate anything on that side of it.
Does your office see the necessity maybe to have conversations with Alfred and Sonora? Because there are conservationists over there. They have 2 or 3 water utility companies over there. They have maquiladores that are just, I just did a tour, it's incredible. 125,000 people, they're drawing from that same water basin. There should be a conversation, at least starting, especially with this AMA here. And that's part of, the state's preview to be able to make those talks happen.
We certainly understand that concern. It's certainly something we're going to be evaluating, understanding how water flows in the basin, that type of thing. When it comes to those types of discussions, those have to be raised to the federal level.
Yes, but you can raise them through your office as elected official.
Yeah, so it's something we're discussing currently, but I can't really say more about it.
We would need to go through the United States Department of State and the IBWC.
Which is right, and you can show the necessity to have at least conversations. There's definitely evidence to show that those talks need to happen. So you could do that in your office. Okay.
And we do have the permitted facilities on our website. So,
All right. So there are 2 different types of recharge facilities that we have permitted. There is underground storage facilities, USF, USF. And it's physically adding renewable water supplies to an aquifer. So like the picture shown, kind of just man-made holes in the ground with water in them, where you physically see that water going into the aquifer.
So it's an injection.
In some cases, it's injection. In some cases, it's just a filtration.
Thanks, Brandon.
I'm sorry. Can try it now and see if it goes back.
Yes, thank you. And there's a groundwater savings facility in GSF. And it's direct use of renewable groundwater supplies in lieu of pumping groundwater. It's indirect recharge using agricultural lands, and usually those in lieu water can be delivered to right holders as a difference of groundwater. So being able to use in lieu rather than straight groundwater for that accounting purpose.
I never see that happening in Douglas AMA. Where are we going to get the water from? City of Douglas? Or maybe force Bisbee to direct their water to this basin? So, I mean, our septic tanks, we're doing it that way.
Usually, irrigation districts
We
have.
don't have any dish. We have one.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure
Now,
there's
free.
one.
It's very tiny. It's a non-player.
So you have to use a permanent recovery well in order to recover stored long-term storage credits. And stored water retains legal character, which I've kind of covered. So it's not considered groundwater if you store effluent, pull that effluent out, still effluent water. So, and it also may be recovered anywhere within the AMA regardless of where in the AMA it is stored. All right. We have just any other questions about recharge? I have our recharge team information up on the slide and website information for them also. All right, I will pass it off to John. Thanks, John, for joining us. Hopefully we can hear you. I think you're muted, John. Unmuted. All right, try again, John.
Okay, maybe, John, can you try again one more time? Maybe it's this one? Yeah, try that.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Okay, John's trying a different microphone. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, I think so. Let's try it. Okay.
No, love technology.
Sure. That's what you speak yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Are you getting a bad echo?
Yeah, just a bit.
Hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. How about now?
Sounds good.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. Well, let me know if this cuts out. I apologize. I could hear you fine. I guess you just couldn't hear me. So good afternoon, and apologies again for the audio issues. My name is John Riggins. I'm the Water Resources Advisor to the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona, or WIFA. I've probably met some of you, although I can't see you in person, during my previous time at ADWR, where amongst other duties, I oversaw the statewide planning activities for the department. So thanks again. I'm here today to provide you with an overview of WIFA's role in funding water programs and projects across the state. I will just preface from the beginning that I am definitely not a finance expert. My area of expertise is more focused towards the water resources side, the policy and regulation. So if there are any specific questions on financing, the details of the loans and grants that I can't field, I can certainly point you in the direction of my colleagues at WIFA, our financial loan officers, or our grants coordinator, who might be able to assist you with any specific questions, and I can provide their contact information. So yeah, we'll get started here. So for those of you who aren't familiar with WIFA, we are a small state agency that essentially acts like a bank. We finance water projects across the state, and we do that by utilizing public funds to make our financing work for unique needs for the water systems across Arizona. This isn't necessarily a new model, and WIFA for the last 3 decades has been a continuation of that model through our state revolving funds, which provide low-cost financing for the clean water and drinking water state revolving funds. So WIFA is governed by its board, which consists of 9 voting members appointed by the governor and legislative leadership, and 9 non-voting members representing legislative leadership and the relevant state agency heads. We are not a regulatory agency. That is our friends at ADWR and Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. They're the ones who enforce the rules and statutes, and WIFA provides the resources to help communities comply with those regulations. Next slide, please. So in July of 2023, the WIFA board adopted a 5-year strategic framework. Oh, one slide back, please. Thanks. The WIFA board adopted a 5-year strategic framework to specify how WIFA intends to use its 5 funds to accomplish the direction set forth in set forth by the Arizona State Legislature. So this framework sets numeric targets for augmentation, conservation, and reliability that will guide WIFA's actions. So WIFA will work towards these new targets as follows. So for augmentation, we're going to work with potential customers to develop augmentation targets and enter into a competitive process to develop the best project or projects to reach those targets within state and out-of-state projects. For conservation, we're going to continue to expand the new Water Conservation Grant Fund program to install long-term water savings projects throughout the state. For reliability, we're focused on priority projects that address public health impacts in communities without the capacity to address them. And this includes the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund that is specifically designed to meet the water supply challenges of small and rural communities in Arizona. Next slide, please. While 2023 brought much focus to WIFA's new programs for augmentation and conservation, WIFA has a strong decades-long legacy of assisting Arizona communities with water quality and water supply needs through our revolving loan programs. Since 1989, WIFA has provided nearly $3 billion in financial assistance to Arizona communities to address their water needs. In 2023, WIFA approved over $160 million in subsidized loans for the Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Funds to support the water needs of communities throughout Arizona. To address the growing concerns with emerging contaminants such as PFAS, WIFA has approved nearly $38 million in loans specifically targeted to water utilities' needs to address PFAS, as well as provide the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality over $3 million in funding to address the same. In addition to the existing loan programs primarily supported by federal funds, the legislature injected $200 million into the previously dormant Water Supply Development Fund and focused this fund on the more rural portions of Arizona. WIFA has adopted policies and drafted rules for this program, and once approved, WIFA will open its third revolving loan program, providing even more resources to Arizona communities. And there should be handouts there at the meeting that kind of detail the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund and the details, the eligibility, the priorities, and the eligibility for projects as well. In the newly adopted strategic framework, WIFA is focusing on resources for the 3 loan programs on priority communities that are most in need of financial assistance and water infrastructure. Next slide, please. The Water Conservation Grant Fund exists to provide financial resources to eligible entities for the purpose of conserving Arizona's water supply. Applications closed last November, and we had more than 240 applications received, nearly $300 million in grants requested, and as you see from the map on the screen, all Arizona counties were represented through the application process. The conservation programs and projects from the applications vary, but they include turf removal and turf rebate programs, agriculture system upgrades, advanced metering system upgrades, efficient fixtures, recharge and reuse, conservation education. So I'd also just like to add, the WIFA website includes a link to the updated list of all the Water Conservation Grant Fund applications that we've received, as well as all of the approved applications. And this is a tremendous resource for the public to see all the details involved with the various conservation projects that are happening across the state, and all of the details behind the different programs and projects. Next slide, please. Excuse me. The timeline you see on the screen is for the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund. Oh, I'm almost done. In 2022, the legislature passed a bill that was signed into law that July, establishing a fund for investing in projects designed to import new water into Arizona to meet current and future needs. The new legislation outlined that the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund will help finance water supply development, with at least 75% of the funds being used for water importation opportunities from out of state, and up to 25% of the funds available for in-state augmentation projects. The WIFA was tasked with administering this new fund, which became effective in September of 2022. In September of 2023, WIFA published a request for information regarding the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund that serves as a platform for stakeholders to provide their insights on proposed ideas to augment the state's water supplies. The RFI was not a formal solicitation for proposals, and responding to the RFI was not a prerequisite for participating in any future solicitations. The results of the RFI will help define augmentation solutions that can impact Arizona's water supply portfolio in ways consistent with Arizona's needs. The RFI is not a menu of options for the board or WIFA to choose from, but this is a starting point to help WIFA develop a solicitation in the future. And as you see from the graphic, we're still in the early stages of development. Since this bill was passed in 2022, WIFA has not made any commitment to any specific water projects or any sort of augmentation solutions or activities. We do have a path charted for 2024, and the WIFA board has begun conducting a series of long-term water augmentation funding workshops to help craft and develop competitive solicitation and identify a pathway for alternative project delivery. So these workshops are public meetings, they're past recordings, and any future meeting information are available on the WIFA website under our public notice and public meetings information link. Next slide, please. So that is it. I apologize again for the audio issues and having to hold the phone up the entire time of the meeting, but thanks again for the opportunity to speak. I really do hope this information was helpful. And again, don't hesitate to contact me or any of my colleagues at WIFA for any questions about any of the grant programs, about Water Supply Development Fund. I'll just reiterate that our website is a wealth of information on all 5 of the different funding programs, as well as all past meeting information. All of our board and committee meeting materials are made publicly available, and they're available chronologically by the meeting dates. So you can go back and review any of the information, applications, anything approved or denied. So it's all there. So with that, thank you. If there's any questions.
Available to individual farmers or whatever? Or do they need to be a water system, a municipality, or a government group?
So are you just referring to any of the programs in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sure.
in most cases, it is not specific to like an individual well owner or an individual water user. It's more on the more broad scale of a water provider. And for the different loan programs, such as if you have the handout there for the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund, it lists what is considered, and it's in statute, what is considered an eligible entity to apply for funding. So typically water providers, delivery systems, Native American tribes, public water systems, NRCS districts, county water augmentation authorities.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
All right, well, thank you so much, John, for joining us today and presenting. We appreciate it definitely a lot.
Absolutely, thank you. Anytime.
All right. We will move on to the annual reporting workshop.
So before this moves on, sorry to interrupt. I just want to kind of come back to some of the questions about funding before John's presentation. Did you get your questions answered? Is there anything else we should kind of discuss on the recharge side of things?
Is Mr. Riggins the person we contact about the recharge point?
I think he could be a good person to discuss potential options for funding for WIFA with. You could consider working with Steve Douglas, with the county,
I
working
am working with the county and I want to be.
Okay, so if you're already working with the county, I would say reach out to our research folks, and I can make sure that you get contact information.
I guess more specifically, I'm interested in design parameters to see if the project is.
So I think that's something that could be discussed as a part of some kind of a pre-application we did with our research team.
That would be Mr. Riggins.
That would be, I'll give you some information. It's typically go through Shannon, right?
Thank you.
There was a question earlier about whether or not we can look up recharge documents. I looked at our timeshare and there is a search parameter for recharge documents.
Okay.
But I don't know any sort of right numbers offhand to look at what that might be. So it sounds like we can get into the website.
Yeah. Any other questions?
All right, we have it kind of scheduled to take a quick break. if we'd still like to do that before we move on to kind of the harder part of the annual reporting workshop.
We're supposed to be planning on staying for the annual reporting portion.
Is it the same as normal?
So it's, all of that's.
Kind of. The INA reporting is a little not as in-depth as the AMA reporting. There's a lot more paperwork that kind of goes into it, and it's going to be a little different. How we're going to be reporting you'll still be reporting on your INA authority number, so that's 60 dash. Because we haven't been able to, with our system and our database, we haven't been able to transfer those over into a right quite just yet. So we're asking that you report on your 60, but it's going to be the AMA reporting documents that we're using this time. Kind of same similar process, but a little more in depth. So you're more than welcome to say we can go through it, and I can help you with that if you'd like. All right.
Why don't you just go into it and then we can go into the.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So we will move on to the end reporting. So just a little bit of background, according to ARS 45-632, each person is required to file an annual report under the section and shall maintain current and accurate records of the person's withdrawals, transportation, deliveries, and use of all water withdrawn from the well. So we ask that the annual report is correct. And you are also signing on the annual report that it is correct information that you're providing to the department. For this year, we ask, like I said, to use the 60 number for the report. It's going to be a little harder because it's not going to ask, you can't really pre-populate these sheets, so that's why we brought blank forms for everyone to fill out if they need it. And if you are outside of the previous INA boundaries, we ask that you use your 79 assignment number that you received with confirmation that we received your application. The online portal is available through our website. Pretty fast, simple, easy. It shouldn't take too long. And paper copies are also available to download on our website if you need another scratch copy. We are going to leave some copies here at the visitor center if you ever need it. And I'm going to go over very, very basic reporting for someone who is just using an irrigation well. We can go into more depth about municipal reporting and industrial reporting if you have questions specifically after the presentation. I like to think about the annual reporting documents backwards. You kind of receive your documents and the first thing you see is the summary sheet, and that should be your end total, rather than starting there and going backwards. I like to start with the well worksheet where you calculate how much water you pumped from each individual well that you have. The most common well measurements we see are beginning and end readings, and in the acre feet conversions of gallons, cubic feet, or acre feet. That is the W1 worksheet. And we also have different types of worksheets to calculate acre feet based off of flow, energy consumption. We also, to calculate that, if you do use a flow meter, we do ask that you have it is required that you have 2 flow reads in order to calculate the accurate measurements from those. We do have a well worksheet calculator available online that has all of our well worksheets kind of compiled into one in different tabs where you can just enter those numbers and it automatically calculates how much acre feet you pumped from that well. Next, so once you get those totals and calculated numbers on the well worksheet, I like to move on to Schedule A, which compiles that down to just a singular total from each well, rather than showing the full math of the measurements itself. So Schedule A is a total of the quantity of water pumped from each individual well. So you'll put that well number in the first box. If, in this case, it's going to be groundwater for Dutch, so you'll put it in that box 5, and then at the total at the end.
I have a question about box 4.
Yes,
Designated providers only, what's that mean?
it is for municipal providers who are designated. There is also Schedule D, which is, we want to see how much water that was delivered to any other authority holder, and the type of water and how much. So in here, so say your neighbor also has a 60 authority and you pumped water from your well and sent it over to that property, that's how much we'll need to know on the annual report, is how much water you sent over to the other authority number. This would not include, for a municipality's sake, a customer for that prospect, an individual house owner. This is for anybody with another authority right holder. Schedule E, think about it as the opposite. Any water that you receive from another authority holder. So again, if your adjacent neighbor has a right number that they pump water and deliver that water to you, you would put that you received X amount of water from that right. So you'll need the right authority number, the type of water you received, and the amount in acre feet. And if we don't get these done today, you're more than welcome to email our main line at earp@azwater.gov, and our user main phone number. And most of the staff is well versed in all of this, and we can help you. The deadline for annual reporting is March 31st. We do ask that we try to get those in before. I know we're coming a little late, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough time to help you all. Are there any questions regarding these documents? They're very similar, it's just a little bit more in depth.
I've got one, but I'll ask individually later.
Okay, sounds good. All right. That is okay. I can always go over this.
Question?
Oh,
Yeah, I have a
yes, go
question
ahead.
on reporting. This is Albert. So we already submitted our annual report for the INA on the template we've been, using, historically. Is that okay for now? Or I mean, is there already a new reporting form up and running? I mean, we don't.
And that is okay for this year. We are having this is going to be our testing year of making sure that we're having everything done. I know it's hard when you download them, the pre-populated forms through the department. It automatically will give you the INA documents. So
Okay.
It is okay that you submitted that. As long as you submitted your report, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
For future years, we'll be making sure that those auto-generated documents are corrected. So what you will see is a slightly different template for future years. For this year, because we're kind of still in a transitional stage, we'll be accepting those, but we won't accept those INA documents in future years. So you'll need to make sure to get a new template.
We'll set it up with IT to make sure that works. Good, thank you, Albert. Any other questions online or here? All right. I will probably go over this portion at 3 o'clock again, just for people who are showing up late, since we started at that. Yes, Melinda. I see you online. You're muted if you're trying to speak.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
Oh, no.
Hi. So, I'm the reporting party for the town of Bisbee, because Arizona Water Company, is the water provider there. And we've always done our annual report, using the CWS, format online. Is that also acceptable this year? The reporting date is different. So I just wanted to check that.
Melinda, send me an email. We're gonna have to talk about Bisbee's situation, just because portions of it are inside and outside. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll get with Amanda also, and we can talk over the CWS and AMA requirements with that.
Super. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Melinda. All right.
Are you taking general questions?
Yeah.
Do you guys have minutes of your meetings or the audio of it? Because I know, like me, I'm coming in late, but I'm trying to learn everything I can about it. I'd like to go back and see minutes of your other meetings. And I know a lot of people are starting to wake up to this issue. So do you have minutes of this meeting so like we know the things that we talked about? You're going to come back to the next meeting, maybe remind us of these are the things that we needed to talk about.
We do have recorded, all the meetings have been recorded and
Okay.
posted to the website.
But you don't take minutes.
No.
We don't, but we post the slides online if you want to kind of see through the slides. We could maybe use those as a.
And you guys you're considered a public entity, right? Which they don't require you to do minutes.
So under open meeting law, there are specific meetings that are defined as subject to those requirements. This is not one of those. This is kind of an informational type of meeting.
And then just one last question. And somebody asked me to ask this question. There are some laws that have been going up very recently. Are you doing anything to, I guess what would be the wording, to look at people who are drilling wells and making sure that they're doing it the way they're supposed to?
So, with the creation of the AMA, any new non-exempt well is required to have some authority to drill that well. And could be required to do a well impact analysis. So working closely with our wells team as those types of applications have been coming in to make sure that they're properly documented, that they've submitted the appropriate applications.
I can help out with any annual reporting questions. We'll just go into that.
So what we'll do is we'll have staff kind of circulate and we can help with any specific questions on your individual reports.
All right, thank you to everyone online. I'm going to end the recording and hope everyone has a great rest of the day.